Video forum for week 1 by Deb Potts. The National Environmental Policy Act. In response to the severe declines in the overall quality of the health of the natural environment during the 1960s, the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, became effective on January 1st in 1970. NEPA was to ensure that federal decision makers take into account the environmental effects of their proposed actions and consider ways to avoid, minimize, or mitigate adverse effects before implementing the action. This is also the purpose of the NRCS environmental evaluation process, which is the agency which I work for. NEPA is unique among laws because it established a federal policy, and the purpose statement of that policy was that the policy will encourage productive and enjoyable harmony between man and his environment, to promote efforts which will prevent or eliminate damage to the environment and biosphere, and stimulate the health and welfare of man, to enrich the understanding of ecological systems and natural resource importance to the nation, and to establish a council on environmental quality. Now, all federal lands are managed for more than and are set aside for more than just wildlife, and NEPA governs those federal actions on federal lands. A private industry such as oil and gas, although not federal, their actions are taking place on federal lands, which makes it a federal action, and they must comply with NEPA. Similarly, as with the agency I work for, the NRCS, the programs we offer to private citizens do take place on their private lands, but they also have to comply with NEPA because they are doing so in order to obtain federal dollars, making them a federal action. Now, the whole general purpose of NEPA is for federal land managers, i.e. BLM, Forest Service, National Park Service, is to let the federal land owners, which is us, the public, know just how the federal government is managing our federal lands, and to afford us an opportunity to comment on their plans if warranted. Now, because the majority of all federal lands do fall under the control of the BLM, I'm going to shift my focus over to them because of all the recent controversy over who gets to do what on federal lands. Now, some of the issues are that the BLM manages our federal land specifically for multiple uses, just as land controlled by the Forest Service, and with them it's logging. And because they support multiple uses like mining, recreation, grazing, energy development, and then of course wildlife, there are often competing and conflicting issues that arise. Judicial interpretations of NEPA unfortunately only determined that the Act does not require agencies to evaluate environmental concerns over other considerations. In other words, it was determined by the courts that NEPA only require an agency to take a hard look at environmental consequences before any actions take place. Now, one would think that these private agencies would have it made, but they complain about the length of time that is required to assess environmental impacts of a project. My concern is the fact that the law doesn't actually require the environment to be protected, only that there be a presence of efforts to mitigate and explore alternatives to proposed projects and actions. Thus, as long as any adverse environmental consequences are adequately identified and evaluated, the agency is not obligated by NEPA to decide that those other benefits outweigh environmental costs, which is why oil and gas explorations are allowed so frequently on federal lands. Now, the process, in my opinion, is that it's all about money. Private energy development can bid on BLM land and win the right to drill, so to speak, for natural resources on federal lands. Who gets the money? Well, of course, the private industry will drill for profit. However, BLM, as our federal land manager, in other words, us, the taxpayers, do get a cut of that money in royalties, as will the state in which these actions are taking place, which is why states favor energy development on federal lands within their states. That being said, I'm still in favor of NEPA because it does make them take that hard look, and it does get the information out to the public for their opinion, and in some cases, the environment and wildlife do make it to the forefront for protection, which is why the Act was established in the first place, right? I know it was brief and a little opinionated, but that is my version of NEPA. Thank you.